Hello everyone, welcome to the Epoch Times Treasure Words program. Today we connect with Dr. Enver Tohti, the Xinjiang doctor in exile in the UK, to help us analyze the latest situation on Hong Kong's free universal COVID-19 testing program. Hello, Dr. Tohti.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Many people are on the trending topics list on the LIHKG platform in Hong Kong. A lot of people are deeply impressed by your interview, so today we're discussing again. Today is the third day of Hong Kong's National Health Check program. A total of 700,000 people registered. Around 120,000 people have been tested. But among them, there are only 6 confirmed cases, 4 of which are patients who have already recovered. How do you see the National Health Check program? The government spared so much effort, but only 6 out of 120,000 are confirmed cases. Do you think it is worth the effort?
We can view this problem from this angle. To some extent, I envy Hong Kongers because the CCP is conducting such tests for everyone. At least the Hong Kong government announced 6 confirmed cases. That is to say, more or less, they give some feedback. It reminds me of the National Physical Examination in Xinjiang, which started in 2016. The CCP said that to express the central government's concern for ethnic minorities, it will conduct physical examinations for Uyghurs in Xinjiang. To Chinese people, to the people living in China, they are used to such deception, and they believe that it's all true. Those people would think that the CCP is so great, that it will provide free physical examination for them. They don't even question the CCP's incentive in the physical examination. In Hong Kong, the government announced 6 confirmed cases. In Xinjiang, there was no feedback at all. After so many people have been tested, did the CCP say who is ill? No. Then what is the physical examination for? Usually, in one region, if there is an unknown epidemic, then you have every reason to have a national health check. Everyone can go check to see how they're dealing with the epidemic. That makes sense. And that kind of physical examination is available for everyone in that region. However, the physical examination is only targeting Uyghurs. Is it that there is a disease that only contracts Uyghurs and not other ethnicities in the same region? That's not possible, because humans belong to the same species. It's not that ethnic Han is one species and Uyghurs is another. No such thing. That is to say, it is very suspicious. Then we would ask, what do you want to do with the physical examination? The CCP has no answer for you. Then what can you do? We can only figure out on our own. Look for reasonable answers. Then the answer is, right now, we have been seeing a rampant in organ transplant. In mainland China, they can waste an organ at their will. For a liver transplant operation, hospitals can prepare over 2 livers, so that if one doesn't work, there is a spare. If the first one could work, the rest would be wasted. How did the CCP manage to do that? The only logical explanation is that behind the scenes, in some hidden place, there are many organs, and the organs are not like regular meat. I could buy meat, freeze it in the fridge, and eat it even 10 years later. However, live organs don't work like that. Their functions cannot be maintained. Their functions cannot be maintained for long, so what can they do? They have to keep the organ inside the human body and only harvest when needed. So they can find a matching organ in a couple of hours. How can they do that? The answer lies in the physical examination. From Hong Kong's National Health Check and the big database, it is a result of this. I hate to say that the entire database is for organ transplant. No, that's not the case. They've got something big. They are plotting something even bigger. They want to control everybody's life and soul because they want to control you. So through your daily behaviors, they can deduct what you want to do. Then with the gradual technological development, they will be able to control your soul. Then the CCP will remain in power forever.
How do they control one's soul? Can you explain a bit more?
You see, here's an example, my personal experience. When I was little, I was in school. We shout, "Long live Chairman Mao" and "Long live the Chinese Communist Party" every single day. We have to shout out their slogans every day. After we arrive at school, we must salute to Mao's portrait every day before class. We need to bow to the portrait and ask for permission to the portrait. To me, to the young me, that was all real. I honestly believed that my words could be heard by Mao Zedong. I literally thought that he would be pleased if I vowed to be a diligent student in front of him. This story might seem inconceivable to people living in Hong Kong or other places, but it is real. And how far did it go? In 1970s, around 1975, I can't recall what the CCP was doing. The CCP appealed to us that we need to draw a demarcation line with our parents. Back then, we were just kids still in school, and they asked us to go home and cut off ties with our parents. Who will raise us instead? Have we thought this through? No, the CCP has been brainwashing us. The kinship with our parents cannot be compared to that with the CCP. That is to say, the CCP's connection is stronger than your family ties. Without your parents, the CCP will raise you instead. These stuff. When people slightly grow older, they will think these are ridiculous when they hear about these. But imagine receiving that education from the first grade of primary school, from kindergarten, a brainwashed generation. What will they grow up to be? They have infinite faith in the CCP. They have infinite faith in it. So after I got back home back then, I said to my parents that I will cut off the ties with them because back then families are categorized into different classes: poor and lower middle peasants, rich farmers, landlords, etc. And my parents were labeled as businessmen because they used to make deals with others. Then business people belong to the category of petty bourgeoisie. Me, as the little red guard of the new China, should I draw a demarcation line with the petty bourgeoisie? Then I went home and said to my parents that I will draw a demarcation line with them.
It was like that since I was little. I understand. Okay, I also want to ask, during the so-called national health checks this time, in many cases, some Chinese companies, they require all of their employees to participate in the test. They're required to participate in the plan. Otherwise, they may lose their job. This situation now, do you think it is unusual?
In that case, you have to be careful about the method it uses, because it wants to hide its true purpose. It uses a fake cover to do the test. It must be done like it's real. They have to make the fake show look real, right? So it must make this fake thing very similar to a real one, make you really think it is for you. As for the real purpose, they won't tell you.
So we'll see many shows of this type. For example, the chief executive also goes for testing. Then those members of the pro-establishment camp in Legislative Council also go to have a test. Some people even fight for queuing. Then someone comes out at the end and say it'll be fast, very convenient, and then the service is very good. So many citizens think it's free, I'll give it a go. It doesn't hurt to try. Do you think these are camouflage techniques? So it's a part of its fake cover. Can I understand it this way?
Yeah, this is part of its play. It just exploits the weakness of human nature. I'll give you a free check and then I will give you the result. It will be very comfortable for you to have a test. Then you say, nothing to lose. You go there and feel very comfortable. It will take away your biological sample. Why don't you point it out? Why don't you ask? What are you doing? What right do you have to take my biological sample? Because it takes your biological sample? With the current state-of-the-art technology, it can completely clone you. Current technology already has this ability.
Yes, actually, if you may notice, you might have noticed. Let's talk about a company involved in the Hong Kong's national health check. There's a company called Bgi Group. It has been sanctioned by the US because of the Uyghurs, because it took the DNA of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. In other words, it was also involved in human rights violations. This company is also participating in testing in Hong Kong. This company is also working with those participating in live organ harvesting, like a company in Tianjin called the Tianjin First Central Hospital. They have close cooperation. So it's criticized by a human rights organization in the US called World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong. It's been singled out and criticized. So it's such a company. Some foreign countries also disclosed the level of its testing is relatively low. It's about 30% accurate. What do you think of the Bgi Group? What role does it play in this testing?
It doesn't matter whether it's technically sophisticated or not, whether the technology is good or not. The key is whether it is loyal to its boss. it is loyal to its boss, then even if its products are garbage, there will be a market. It will earn money too. This is the main point. And I think we're here to discuss which company participated, which company did not participate. We seem to have missed the point. No matter what company you are, as long as you are under the leadership of the Communist Party, all companies under the Communist Party, they're obliged to side with the party and provide information to the party. So when these companies are doing these things, they have already been very skillful. They coax you just like coaxing a child. It's very simple for them. As long as they manage to coax you to go there, it achieves its purpose. I think so. These big data, these biological samples, as they get these data, it's not difficult to explain why could they within such a short time find an organ. Then they say that this person is an extremist or this person committed suicide. Next, his organs are gone. Just now you asked, why those doctors in mainland China don't stand up and speak out? Yes, I think these doctors from mainland China, some are of my age, others younger than me. People like them, they're just like me. Ever since birth, they were sent directly to the brainwashing machine. They were brainwashed when growing up. Their whole thinking has been completely brainwashed. They have been indoctrinated by the Communist Party. So he doesn't think he's committing a crime. This is the main reason. The crux of the problem is that he didn't think he was committing a crime. The Communist Party instills in them all the enemies of the country. We must eliminate them. All the people other than the Communist Party members, and apart from those who sympathize with the communists, all others could be the enemy of the country. Also, you don't need to prove to them that the prisoner I have brought in today to be executed is an enemy of the country. You don't need to prove at all, as long as you say that he is the enemy of the country. Then this doctor will immediately treat this prisoner with a fierce look, because he thinks he is standing with the country. To eliminate these enemies of the country is also his obligation. Not just those adults, even the children would feel that eliminating bad people is their responsibility. This is the key issue. They anesthetize the person, take out his organs, and let him die directly. He doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. Even when those doctors go abroad for further studies, they would think that those things abroad are nothing. You're just a bit more advanced in science and technology. Other things are nothing. Nothing at all. His thinking has been distorted.
But won't his conscience be touched if this person dies in his hands?
Then you would have overpraised them. If you ask whether their conscience will be touched, do they have a conscience? In terms of conscience being touched, the precondition is that they must, first of all, have a conscience. When one does not have a conscience, there won't exist such an issue of conscience being touched. Do they have a conscience? No. I can give you an example. It was in our hospital, in the division where I was, what we experienced between the late 1980s to 1990s. It was during that period of time. Our hospital has an affiliated pharmaceutical factory, like our hospital had our own factory making medicines. This factory produced one kind of health protection medicine, claiming that this kind of medicine would benefit those patients receiving chemotherapy and radiotherapy, because after a cancer patient goes through chemotherapy and radiotherapy, his hemoglobin in the body will be reduced and his immunity will decrease. So they claimed that the medicine they produce would help raise the level of one's hemoglobin in the body. It was certainly a good thing. So they made this medicine and sent to our division for a clinical experiment. How was the clinical experiment conducted? Say, when we receive a patient, I would then, before using this medicine, do a blood test and check all items. Then I started giving him chemotherapy, and at the time let him take this medicine. 3 weeks later, after the chemotherapy, another blood test was done to check if his hemoglobin has decreased. We all did this initially, but then we found out that this medicine was not effective at all. The hemoglobin decreased to a very low level. What's to be done then? Because this medicine must be passed. So our director went to the laboratory in person and brought back over 100 blank test forms, which had already been stamped. He took them back and gave them to us, telling us to fill them out ourselves. And after we filled them out, the result was, wow, this person's hemoglobin level indeed had not decreased after 3 weeks. That was what we did personally. Doctors cheat. This is not fake.
Right, but the doctors didn't show any disagreements at that time? Feeling how you could make up such a result? Was it common?
It is very common. The whole society is like this. Because in this society, if you don't know how to cheat, you won't be able to survive. You must learn to cheat.
That is to say, you felt it was normal at that time, or did you feel a bit guilty?
No, I did not feel guilty at all then. It was very normal because what I had seen since young was all like that. I thought the whole world was like that. Only after I came to the UK did I begin to read Hong Kong's publications and Taiwan's publications. Then I started to realize, truly realize, that a person has his dignity and a person has rights. At that time, all those things that had happened to me in the past started coming back gradually. Then I began to feel ashamed and have a sense of guilt when being exposed to this advanced civilization, but there are still many people. Even when he is in contact with this advanced civilization, he is still reluctant to wake up.
So we call it the party culture. Many Chinese people tell lies as soon as they open their mouths. They seem to have learned, like the other day when we interviewed a person in the National Security Office. We suspected that he was national security, really, telling lies when opening his mouth, saying he was a tourist, pretending to be a tourist, right? I just feel very strange. Is it that many Chinese people have formed this kind of mentality? It's difficult for him to tell the truth. He's like an actor. It's hard for him to play a good person's role, but it's very easy for him to play a bad person's role. Very similar, is that the case?
Yes, also, the level of those people being brainwashed is far beyond the imagination of people who live elsewhere, like a person, an adult. His brain can be brainwashed to that extent. It's really hard for you to imagine. It's beyond your imagination, like a person's nature can be distorted to that degree.
So when you were telling the truth today, I noticed you also reviewed probably a year ago the human rights violation cases in Xinjiang, namely the Uyghurs, those who were locked up in concentration camps, their organs. The child's organs just disappeared. Then they simply called it Muslim organs, and the biggest buyers are the Arabs. Could you explain what this is all about? How did you come to this conclusion?
I can tell you about this now, but I will need to protect my source of information because this source is too sensitive. Once I spelled it out, he would be found straight away. But someone showed me a pile of documents. Inside was a price guide, as well as payment receipts. Then he showed me where this place was, where would the money be paid, and where the surgery be done. He got it all, copy by copy. This is not just the Arabs. I never said Arabs. I always talk about Muslims. Look at the Tianjin Oriental No. 1 Organ Transplant Center. That should be the biggest transplant center in 2009. Its website's address was changed into Arabic language. It's in English, but the name is in Arabic. Then you just think, are there that many Muslims in Tianjin? Was it worth changing its name to an Arabic name for such a big hospital? It's impossible. Even if Tianjin had that many Muslims, there weren't that many who were rich enough to afford to buy organs. Or perhaps, maybe they were officials. Officials can have free transplants. This is impossible. I saw a short video a few days ago. It gave an introduction to the facilities of a Beijing Chinese medicinal hospital. The setup is for the Arab world. The furnishings and supplies in it are all in Islamic style. Then the first thing that comes to mind is the source of its customers. The center was built to a halal environment. Then its source of customers must be mostly from the halal Muslim countries. That's why it did all these. Otherwise, it wasn't necessary at all. Even if the environment has changed to halal, there are still problems. The pork from the hospital and cafeteria has to be taken away. Besides, when purchasing meat for the hospital, they have to buy it from a halal meat wholesale store, which again is more expensive. So what caused them to change the name? That's because the profits are too big, and because people in these halal countries are willing to pay 2 to 3 times higher price for this halal organ. It is not just that people with halal organs don't eat pork, they don't drink alcohol too. Then the person's organ not affected by alcohol must be good organs. Furthermore, the entire body of a person who practices Qigong, the quality of its organ must be high. Falun Gong practitioners are not Muslims, but the main reason why Falun Gong practitioners are targeted because they practice Qigong, that is, they do exercise. Qigong exercises make their body healthy. Then the organs are in excellent condition, graded as first-class organs. But Muslims don't eat pork. It puts this in the first place. Actually, because they don't even drink, then their organs comparatively, at least the hepatobiliary system, are good. That is the second-class organ. Those third-class organs are from those who do everything in society, eat everything. Their organs will be graded as third-class organs. The prices vary accordingly. But after reading the documents this person showed me, he forbade me taking pictures or keeping photocopies, just showed to me. He said they're for you to read only. After that, I kept waiting for the second set of evidence to appear for me to take further action. Then it was February last year, when I was in Taiwan, someone called me and said he had evidence. Then he said he would send me this evidence as soon as possible. It turned out that the same day, a reporter of Voice of America stationed in Taiwan, I forgot her name, a very pretty lady happened to be there. Then we did an interview, and I told her this, and it was put on Voice of America afterwards. It was on the Voice of America in Taiwan in the morning. After nightfall, that was when the Americans wake up. After seeing this, I took it off. Then as for me, because it was too sensitive, I deleted it. Then I, the person who promised me the second set of evidence, didn't send it over to me. Then I sent him a tweet and said, "Very sorry, this could be fake news." But then, I got this message again. Then I sent a tweet and said, "I've got evidence now and it's right here. You have a look yourself." So this is not just for the Arabs, it's for people who have money. Judging from this, there are still many wealthy Muslims because they are willing to pay a higher price. They pay these agents in their own country, then they will receive from the embassy of their own country in Beijing a letter of confirmation. Then they could take this letter and go to Urumqi for the transplant operation. Halal organs are only available on Muslims. Now there are rumors that China has begun to provide similar services in Kazakhstan and also in Turkey for similar surgeries. So you basically needn't go to mainland China.
Yes, I remember one year when we were having a conference on organ transplants, we were investigating at that time. There's a hospital. We found that the hospital cooperated very closely with a country in Southeast Asia. It was actually possible it was no longer done in mainland China because the crime has already been exposed, so the surgery may not be done in mainland China. Is there such a possibility? At that time, this is what we presumed, but we didn't go into a further investigation. However, this is a very strange thing. That is, the hospital is in close cooperation with another hospital in Southeast Asia. Moreover, the doctors and even their team often go to that hospital for a whole day, just as you said. It may not actually be necessary to do the surgery in mainland China, right? But how can organs be shipped abroad, if it is inferred as such?
Yes. Let me tell you, in Xinjiang, there's another issue that hasn't been taken seriously. That is the problem of missing persons. The problem of missing persons is a big issue. It is, however, a big issue that has been covered up so far. Too many people has been missing. Where have those missing people gone? Moreover, after a person's organs have been removed, if he is still alive, he will probably speak out. And yet in China, the last thing that it lacks, what is that? The last thing that mainland China lacks is people. So he could, for the sake of this benefit. Let's take an example. Not an example, it's an analogy. Let's say that there's a hospital in a foreign country acting as a proxy. Then you register with it. Then when the number of registered people has reached a certain level, it will then notify you when an organ will be available and you can get ready to go. At the same time, there may be a special plane to bring the person alive from the mainland. He should still be alive when he was brought there. If he was killed in the country, then that organ, firstly, it is not fresh. Secondly, there is the danger of losing effectiveness. Therefore, it's very likely that a person was brought there alive. Then over there, the two operating rooms are located next to each other. The organ is taken out here in one of the operating rooms. Next is to pass the organ to the other operating room for the organ to be transplanted, and the job is completed. The person whose organ has been taken is already under deep anesthesia. They must not let him wake up, or else that's the end of it. Or simply take the body directly to the crematorium to be burnt. Do you have evidence? No. Of course, this is only our bold assumption. We have no evidence, we have no direct evidence. Why do you make such a bold assumption? It's because anything incredible. There are too many things which are beyond our imagination. I still remember that I once saw I'm trying to look for it again now, but can't find it. At that time, it's planned that this China in the year 2025 or 2050, in this plan, it mentioned that organs will be provided to the whole world. Just think about it. If an organ is needed in London and the organ is in Beijing, normally it takes 11 to 12 hours to fly from Beijing to London. Long before it arrives, the organ would be dead. How can it provide an organ to the whole world? Using that machine given by the Taiwanese? That machine ECMO is too big. An airplane can't carry many of them. To the CCP, the least valuable thing is human life. Therefore, the most convenient way for them is to bring living people onto the plane directly. This is a feasible and a logical presumption.
So today you think that evil is still going on? If you see those doctors, what will you say to them?
I, as a person of the same profession, I understand their situation because a person who has been brainwashed, he would feel that his situation is the best in the world, his country is the best developed one in the world, and he's the happiest person in the world. Therefore, there is no way to communicate with them. However, what I want to say to them is, put it in the Chinese language. There's a Chinese saying, when a person dies, we often say he has gone to see his ancestors. However, in mainland China, when a member of the Communist Party dies, they'll say he has gone to see Karl Marx. It's like that. So I hope these colleagues in the mainland, when you go to another world, don't talk about meeting Karl Marx. Marx is a foreigner. You'd better go to meet your ancestors.
Also, Marx believed in Satanism.
Right. Your ancestors have left behind so many good things. Why don't you observe those cultural traditions? This all goes back to, the ability to distinguish between the good and the evil.
Many people were reported to have committed suicide in Hong Kong last year, and several floating bodies were found in the sea. People were also missing. Yes, we have no evidence, don't know where they have gone. But in a place near Shenzhen, there's a communal cemetery over there. Several nameless graves were erected.
In China, anything could happen because they cover up anything. So you and I are outsiders. Having suspicion is not uncommon because we can't not make deductions. As there's no concrete evidence, we're only making bold guesses. The truth could be worse than our assumptions. I have once listened to a phone conversation given to me by someone. It was a recorded phone conversation. I could not verify the facts on the conversation. I haven't mentioned this before. Now that I have brought it up, I must say I have not verified the facts on the recording. The recording said several Uyghurs were loaded into an army truck. Then they were transported to this place, the border between Xinjiang Military District and the Lanzhou Military District. The truck stopped there, and the driver left and went back. Another team came to take over. They were CCP soldiers from Lanzhou District. They continued driving the truck forward, not knowing what the truck carried. No one knew what's in the truck, neither this side nor that side. The truck went all the way to Gansu. Then another two swaps of driving team, those drivers and security, changed again, until they reached Qinghai. The truck was then taken away. After that, it was said the destination was an execution ground where all of them were shot dead. Their intention was, in the future, even if someone discovered the dead bodies, they were not in Xinjiang. Just imagine the thoughts they put into something like that.
Therefore, the latest editorial on the Epoch Times says, "Devil is now ruling the world." When dealing with the devil and having the courage to tell the truth, where does it come from?
How to say it? Perhaps the courage comes from my personal interest, because everyone will end up in another world. That is, nobody will live forever. So, when you cross over this river, what do you call this river? What's the name of this bridge again? When you cross the bridge where you have to be judged, but then at least I can say, although I had participated in a lot of this kind of evil, I regretted my deeds. I have repented. I watched the crime, the evil crime in progress, and I have the courage to expose it. Perhaps there is still selfishness embedded.
Thank you, Enver. Yeah, carry on.
Also, wait, I argued with a Taiwan friend. He said, Hong Kongers don't have to be afraid. CCP can arrest you, but they have no way and nowhere to confine you. I replied, you are too naive. Xinjiang is such an enormous place, large enough to confine all of your Hong Kong people. I would say it's simple for them to send you to Xinjiang in this desert environment. There's a farm called the Shaya Prison Farm. I have a classmate who was a soldier there once. He said to me, we don't have to worry about those prisoners. They can't escape. It's desert everywhere. He will die of thirst without a doubt. So, the extent of CCP's evil is only limited by our imagination, but never by their ability. Nothing sinister they can't think of.
As for Hong Kongers, they are actually fighting against the pressure. I feel that a lot of people can continue to persist while under pressure. However wicked, they must have weaknesses. Or let's say, a man must be able to live with honor. So where can we find this hope?
It's hard to find this hope because the sinister CCP is unfathomable. If we knew their bottom line, then we could predict. We could know what's the result by resisting, and we could predict. But the CCP's evil has no bottom line. We can't predict what's coming next, as they could do anything. Looking at the present situation, take a look at Xinjiang. 10 years ago, CCP stopped all schools from teaching the Uyghur language. The Xinjiang people did not resist nor protest. They were not like the Mongolians today, protesting on the street. No, they didn't. CCP took a look. Good. The problem doesn't seem too big. Then CCP started working on the Mongolians first, but did not think that the Mongolians would rebel. The Mongolians have an advantage when they rebel, as they are closely knitted with their fellow men and neighboring countries. Then you're suppressing us here. Then the outer Mongolians may say, to protect the benefits of our fellow men, we will send troops out. But then you will initiate a war. Once the war is ignited, I believe 70 to 80% of the mainlanders are prepared to lead the way for the Japanese and Americans, tell them where the communists are hiding.
Right. The European states are strongly opposing the CCP now. That includes the recent visit of the Czech Republic representative to Taiwan. One after another, other countries are starting to show their support.
Right. Yes. I feel that our benevolent God will be with us eventually, because the world cannot be dominated by evil all the time and ruled by them.
Thank you for sharing. We'll see you again in our next program. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
好 ，hello， 大家好，我係傑斯啊，咁啊，幫大紀元做下呼籲啦，就大家就繼續用行動就去支持一啲咧係講真話發聲嘅媒體啦，咁啊包括大紀元啦，咁啊大家如果有認識傑斯嘅都知道即係過一年我都係好大力去推崇呢個即係大紀元，同埋好感謝佢哋喺我哋個抗爭裏邊做咗好多好有養分嘅報導嘅，咁所以咧就希望大家啦即係用行動或者出少少錢可以支持一下咧大紀元嘅網站，等佢哋可以繼續咧為我哋香港咧係繼續去發聲嘅。多謝。